Hello, this is Angela with Lab20, and for Lab20 we're going to be going over VMware vSphere Distributed Resource Scheduler, or DRS as we all like to call it. And for the objective, we're going to implement a DRS cluster. So let's start off with task 1, and we're going to create the VM kernel port group for vMotion migration. Okay, so here we are under the settings for host 1. We want to manage networking, virtual switches, add networking. And let me just go through the configurations. So it's a VM kernel network adapter. We're going to choose a new standard switch. And then I added a new adapter and chose VMNIC2. And here is vMotion with a capital M. And then we're going to enable services for vMotion traffic, fault tolerance logging, and management traffic. For IPv4 settings, we're going to statically assign it an IP of 172.16.20.51. and subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. And then finish. And we're going to do the same thing for host 2, and the only difference is that the IP will end in .52. So here's the configurations for host 2 for the add networking, and you see here it's .52, and everything else is the same as how we configured host 1. For the next task, we're going to configure the iSCSI software adapter, and we're going to do it for host 2. So that's under Manage, Storage Adapters. Click on the plus sign and add a new software iSCSI adapter. And then after you refresh the page a couple of times, it will show up under the storage adapters page right here. And then you click on it. Under Properties, make sure that the status is enabled. And then under targets, we're going to add another dynamic discovery address of 172.16.1.99. And then it'll ask you to rescan the storage host adapter. So you just click on this button to rescan everything and then refresh the page again. And then if you click under paths, you'll see that there's 2 LUNs listed and they're both active. For task 3, we're going to create a DRS cluster. So in order to do that, I moved ESXi host 1 and 2 into the lab cluster. So that's just a quick drag and drop, or you can just right click on the host and then go to move to, and then select the lab cluster as the location you want it to move to. Now we're on lab cluster, go to manage settings, vSphere DRS, and we're going to edit it and turn it on and configure the settings. So for the settings for the DRS automation, if you expand it, there's more in-depth options. We're going to select manual, and then we're going to change the migration threshold to aggressive. And then hit OK to continue. For task 4, we're going to verify proper DRS cluster functionality. So in order to do that, let's go over to VMs and templates. Then we're going to power on student VM 1 and 2. And when it powers on, it'll ask us for the power on recommendations. And then we're going to select recommendation 2, which is power on virtual machine and place student VM at host ESXi host 1. And we're going to do the same for student VM 2. And then once that's done, we're going to open the console, we're going to log in, and we're going to run the CPU busy Python script for both. And then let's go ahead and run DRS. So we're going to go back to host and clusters. We're going to click on the lab cluster. And then we're going over to monitor, vSphere DRS, and then we're going to run DRS now. So this will take some time to load. If we look at our summary, we'll see that it shows as imbalanced. And if we go back to monitor, we'll see that they actually gave us a recommendation, but we're going to look at CPU utilization for now. And we'll see that it's pretty much at 100%, all on host 1. So let's go back to recommendations. And it's giving us a recommendation to migrate student VM 2 from host 1 onto host 2. So let's go ahead and apply the recommendation. It's going to give us an error, and we're just going to click OK. And then apply it again. Okay, and then it'll go through. Okay, for task 5, we're going to create, test, and disable a VM to VM affinity rule. So under Lab Cluster, we're going to go over to Manage Settings, and then under Configurations, you'll see VM host rules. We're going to add a new rule, and we're going to call it co-locate VMs. We're going to enable the rule. The type is we're going to keep the virtual machines together. We're going to add the two VMs that we want to be kept together, which is student VM 1 and 2, and then hit OK. And then we're going to go back to Monitor, and there's no recommendations, so we're going to run DRS now. And then give this some time to run. Okay, so after it's been run, we'll see that DRS gave us one recommendation. Priority level 1, the recommendation is to move student VM 1 back from host 2 to host 1. And the reason is it's applying the affinity rule. So let's go ahead and apply the recommendations. Okay, let's go CPU utilization. We'll see that it's both back at 100%. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete this rule again. And yes. For task 6, we're going to create, test, and disable anti-affinity rules. So we're on the same page for Lab Cluster, Manage Settings, under Configuration, VM Host Rules, and we're going to create a new rule. We're going to call it Separate VMs, enable the rule, and the type is Separate the virtual machines. And we're going to add the two VMs that we have, student VM 1 and 2. Hit OK. So now this is running. Let's go back over to DRS, and looks like it already ran. So it's giving us it's a priority level 2. The recommendation is to move VM 1 from host 1 to host 2, and the reason is to balance the average CPU loads. So let's go ahead and apply the recommendation. Okay, and then when I go back to CPU utilization, this should balance out. There you go. So now it's at 50-50%. Okay, and let's go back and delete that rule. Finally, for task 7, we're going to create, test, and disable a VM to host affinity rule. So I'm under the Lab Cluster, Manage Settings, under Configuration, we're going to choose VM host groups, and then we're going to create a new host group. We're going to call it DRS group 1. The type is a VM group. And for the members, we're going to add student VM01. Hit OK. And then we're going to add another one, and we're going to call it DRS underscore ESXi. And the type will be a host group, and we're going to add host 2. Hit OK. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to go over to VM host rules. We're going to add a new rule, and we're going to call it host to VM. We're going to enable the rule. And the type will be virtual machines to host. And the settings will be the VM group is DRS group 1, must run on host and group, and DRS, the host group will be DRS ESXi. Hit OK. And then let's go over to our monitor, recommendations, run DRS now, and then give it a minute or two so that it'll give us the recommendations. Okay, once that's done, you would have gotten a recommendation, and there's two. One was migrate student VM2 from host 2 onto host 1. The reason was to balance the average CPU loads. And then the recommendation 2 was to migrate student VM1 from host 1 to host 2, and the reason was to fix the hard VM host affinity rule. And we're going to check off the second one to migrate the VM1 from host 1 to host 2. And then we're going to check off the box that says override the DRS recommendations and apply the recommendation. And after that's done, if we click on CPU utilization, it will show that host 2 is at 100% and there's no powered on VMs on host 1. And that's it.